Now we get to the meat of today's top 10 quarantine movies. At number 10,
Number 10, we have Green Room. Before I kind of talk about what's so good about this movie, I just have to throw in RIP Anton Yelchin. He's a fantastic actor. He was in this movie. Miss your presence. You were fantastic in this. Outside of that, it's a very claustrophobic movie. It's about this band that goes to perform a gig, witness something that they shouldn't, and are trapped essentially in this green room in this area by the people who run the bar, who happen to be Nazis and don't want to let them out. It's claustrophobic. It's visceral. It's also kind of brutally violent. It has one of the more gruesome injuries this side of 127 hours. And Patrick Stewart plays the head Nazi, very against type. He's quietly menacing, and it's hard to not recommend this movie if you're into those kind of things.
I don't know if you're ready, but I'm ready for number 9.
Number 9 is Ready or Not. I was not expecting to like this movie as much as I did. I see a lot of movies. I was going to go see it anyway, but it was kind of like a whatever type movie for me. And I ended up having a lot of fun with it. And like a lot of the movies on this list, I also think that it's vastly underrated. I think you could actually have put it on my list a couple weeks ago of underrated movies. Again, those are subjective. Anyway, so this movie twists a classic children's game into this brutal supernatural horror thriller, and has a star-making turn from Samara Weaving as the girl who's been forced to play this game as part of her entry into this rich family. Without going into too much, this also has one of my favorite endings that I've seen in quite some time.
That's the one I'm probably going to watch tonight. But before that, we got to watch number 8.
So number 8 is The Standoff at Sparrow Creek. Probably have never heard of that movie unless you've talked to me. It is streaming on Hulu right now. So if you have that, you can go see it. What's notable about this, other than its location, is it succeeds as an homage to Tarantino, where many movies have failed. It's a very theatrical film. It's got great performances, fantastic cinematography. Without going into too much, it's just a riveting. It's almost like watching a play unfold on screen. It's very, very well done.
I know that I've never seen that movie, but I want to thank you for number 7.
Number 7 is The Invitation, which to me is a masterclass in the slow burn. Has a fantastic lead performance from Logan Marshall Green. He's playing this grieving father whose son's death ruined his marriage. Now he and his new wife have been invited to a house party hosted by the ex-wife and her new husband. Something just seems off from the minute this movie starts, and it builds and it builds and builds, and by the time that it hits the fan, it's just kind of like, it's jaw-dropping and so suspenseful, and just kind of catapults the film into like a fantastic third act. This film is very, very good.
That's awesome. I might go watch this one the way that I'm going to watch number 6.
Again, Hitchcock makes an appearance on this list. He is the master of suspense for a good reason, and Rear Window is a almost voyeuristic, well, it's not almost, it is a voyeuristic thriller, and it's just has a lot of suspense. The lead is confined to a wheelchair, which doesn't feel like a contrived plot device. And he's watching his neighbors, and he thinks he witnesses a murder, and it just builds paranoia very, very well in a very uh, satisfying way.
That was satisfying. Almost as satisfying as number 5.
I had to include this movie on here. Clue. You heard that right. It is an adaptation of the board game. And it probably shouldn't have worked as well as it did. It's got a great mystery setting with a very welcome dose of humor. It's got a very, very fun cast. And also weirdly felt ahead of its time. It had multiple endings that were shipped to different theaters and kind of made you go look for the different endings, so that people would go see the movie more. Since it's been on TV and video, all the endings have been included and you can watch them all in one place. But at the time, it had a very interesting gimmick that was kind of unheard of at the moment.
That's really awesome. Kind of like number 4.
Number 4 is The Lighthouse. Hopefully you've watched this by now, Greg. If you haven't, shame on you. I really, really like this movie. It's hard to talk about the movie without talking about the cinematography first. It's black and white. Honestly, if 1917 and Roger Deakins hadn't been in the picture, it probably would have won the Oscar. And it has Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. We know how good of an actor Willem Dafoe is.
Mm-hmm.
But Robert Pattinson, for whatever reason, still has some haters in his post-Twilight career, and I do not understand why. And you should look to this movie for just evidence of how good this guy is. And while it's Dafoe's movie kind of in the beginning, it kind of transforms and becomes Pattinson's movie, and it's just so good. And I can't say enough about it.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Bad Times at the El Royale. This movie came out a couple years ago. Again, it's another one that kind of mimics Tarantino's style, but it has an amazing cast. Most notably, Cynthia Erivo. She's fantastic in the lead. I honestly think it's Jeff Bridges' best performance he's ever done in a movie. He's that good. And Chris Hemsworth comes out of nowhere in the last third of this movie and just takes it to another just bizarre, weird place. It's got a really, really good mystery that's woven around this hotel, and all these characters' stories converge on it, and it's told out of order, but it makes sense, and it's very beautifully done, and it's very, very suspenseful, and I don't understand why it hasn't gotten more love.
That brings us to number 2.
So number 2 is Attack the Block. This is just an overall just fun sci-fi movie. It's set at an apartment complex during a alien invasion. Directed by Joe Cornish. It was actually his directorial debut, and it actually launched the career of John Boyega. This is the first thing I saw him in and thought, I mean, if anybody watched this movie doesn't think this kid's going to be a star, something wrong with you. The film has a very, very low budget, and so they had to be very inventive and creative while filming it. They actually only had one monster suit that was practical that somebody wore, and then they had to basically copy that and digitally insert all the other monsters into a lot of scenes, and it's you wouldn't know, and even knowing you can't really tell. And all the kids are great. It's just a really fun movie. You want to see these characters survive, and I was blown away by this movie when I first saw it.
I know what will blow you away. Number 1.
Number 1 is The Raid. This movie ruined action films for me. When you watch it really shows how far behind American action films actually are. With the closest thing, as Greg actually brought up earlier this episode, the John Wick movies are the closest thing In fact, some of the actors actually cross over into the third one from the Raid, which I enjoyed and wasn't really expecting. It was a sequel or a crossover that wasn't advertised, which they totally should have. Anyway, I'm rambling. The action starts like right away, and it just never ever stops. It starts with this military team, and a lot of the action is like guns and like firefights, and then it just becomes this martial arts extravaganza, and just it's hard to talk about how exciting these fights are because they're so long, and you can see the actors getting tired during them, and they're just awesome. And they actually up the ante in Raid 2 in the sequel, but that one ventures out in the world and therefore does not have a place in this list. Go see both of these. They need to make a third one because I think that the director wanted to make a trilogy, but this one sets things up perfectly, throws you right into the action, and it just blows you away, as Greg said.